Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Guys at Magic. This is Hunter coming at you with another deck tech. That's right, we're taking a look at another legendary creature. We're building an entire 100 card deck around it, technically 99 because there is going to be the commander here. But we're looking at the brand new legendaries from the latest set. That's right, it is Aether Drift. But what commander are we building on? You already know, you've clicked on the video. It's Captain Howler, Sea Scourge. Big shout out to our Patreon members, the Gains Indestructible tier, because without them, this deck tech wouldn't have been possible because we let our patrons decide on which we should build and they chose this one next. So shout out to you guys on Patreon. But this is a deck tech that we have created. I'm your host, Hunter. Like I said in the beginning, Riley has actually been the architect of this deck. Very excited to share their ideas along with you guys. So let's go ahead and get started with this deck tech for Captain Howler. So Captain Howler Sea Scourge is 2 blue-red for a 5/4 legendary creature Shark Pirate. It's got Ward, pay 2, and pay 2 life. And it also says, whenever you discard one or more cards, target creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn for each card discarded this way. Whenever that creature deals combat damage to a player this turn, draw a card. So, what are the deck themes here? Well, we got discard, we got cycling, we got hard to block attackers to get max card draw value. It's a value engine. Is it Spellslinger? We're going to be casting a bunch of spells. We're going to be going through our deck very quickly. We're going to be drawing a bunch of cards, discarding a bunch of cards, dealing a bunch of damage with Captain Howler, probably killing our opponents with Captain Howler itself, because let me tell you, commander damage, when you start putting +2/+0 on your commander, gets pretty hectic very quickly. So let's go ahead and get started with this deck tech. Let's kick it off with some Planeswalkers to start the deck off. We have these 4 Planeswalkers in the deck. That's right, we're throwing in 4. These first 3, they all trigger our commanders. So Dak Faden, 1 blue-red for a starting loyalty of 3. It's got a +1. Target player draws 2 cards and discards 2 cards. A -2, gain control of target artifact. Or a -6, you get an emblem with whenever you cast a spell that targets 1 or more permanents, gain control of those permanents. Teferi, Master of Time, 2 and 2 blue for a starting loyalty of 3. It has a static ability that just says you may activate loyalty abilities of Teferi, Master of Time on any player's turn. Anytime you can cast an instant, so yeah, just tick up or tick down Teferi whenever you want. A +1, draw a card and discard a card. A -3, target creature you don't control phases out. And a -10, you take 2 extra turns after this one. And Kaito, Cunning Infiltrator, is 1 and 2 blue for a starting loyalty of 3. Static ability that says whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you put a loyalty counter on Kaito. And a +1, up to 1 target creature you don't control can't be blocked this turn. Draw a card, then discard a card. A -2, create a 2/1 blue ninja creature token. And a -9, you get an emblem with whenever a player casts a spell, you create a 2/1 blue ninja creature token. So all 3 of those Planeswalkers draw a card, discard a card, which helps our commander churn. It helps us go through the deck. And yeah, Kaito especially good there because it makes one of your creatures can't be blocked. Sounds good. And of course, the final Planeswalker is Narset, Parter of Veils, 1 and 2 blue for a 5 loyalty. It just says each opponent can't draw more than 1 card each turn. And a -2 that just says you look at the top 4 cards of your library, you may reveal a non-creature, non-land card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So, Narset, very specific here, but we're probably going to be -2 unless we're in a real dire situation because, as you can see, there is no pluses on Narset. So, Narset is going to be fragile, but Narset's so important here because it doesn't allow our opponents to go ahead and get that extra card draw besides their starting turn card draw. It also shuts off our opponents when we have specific wheel effects, which is also very mean to do. Let's go ahead and move on to the creature department of this deck. We'll start with some creatures that care about card draw. And what do we say over here on Guys at Magic? Card draw wins games. So the first one, Archmage Emeritus, is 2/2 blue, 2/2 creature, human wizard. It says whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, you draw a card. Enduring Curiosity is 2 and 2 blue. 4/3 enchantment creature, Cat Glimmer. Flash, whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card. And then obviously if this was a die, you just return it straight to the battlefield as an enchantment instead of a creature. And then Riel, the Everwise, 1, a blue, a red for a 0/3 legendary creature human wizard. It says it gets +1/+0 for each instant and sorcery in your graveyard. And then whenever you discard 1 or more cards for the first time each turn, draw that many cards. So just a really good synergy with our commander. These next creatures help push damage through. Blighted Agent, 1 and a blue for a 1/1 creature human rogue. It's got Infect, and then Blighted Agent is unblockable. So there's kind of an alternate win con there. We just put all that +2/+0 onto Blighted Agent, and bang, kill someone. Braylon, Skyshark Rider, 3 and a red for a 3/3 legendary creature human shaman. It's got partner, we don't care. And then whenever you discard a card, you put a +1/+1 counter on Braylon, Skyshark Rider, and it deals 1 damage to each opponent. It also has an ability for 1 red mana. Target shark gains trample until end of turn. Guess what? Oh, good old Captain Howler. That is a shark pirate. And then you got Ghostly Pilferer, 1 and a blue for a 2/1 creature spirit rogue. It says when it becomes untapped, you may pay 2. If you do, you draw a card. And then whenever an opponent casts a spell from anywhere other than their hand, you draw a card. And then you can just discard a card. And Ghostly Pilferer can't be blocked this turn. Ghostly Pilferer is so good here because you can just discard cards and then put that +2/+0 on Ghostly Pilferer and then just smash in 2 damage. Some creatures that we actually care about discarding when we do have those effects to discard. We've got Anger and Wonder. They do the same thing, so let's talk about them. Anger's 3 and a red for a 2/2 creature incarnation. It's got haste, and as long as Anger's in your graveyard and you have a mountain, creatures you control have haste. And then Wonder, very similarly, 3 and a blue for a 2/2. It's got flying. That says as long as Wonder is in your graveyard and you control an island, creatures you control have flying. So both of these are very important to our deck because we want to get in with that damage quickly. We want to fly over things to get in with that damage even more efficiently. We do have one creature here that cares deeply about helping us discard more. We have Forgotten Creation. For 3 and a blue, it's a 3/3 creature zombie horror. It's got Skulk, which means this creature can't be blocked by creatures with greater power. And it says at the beginning of your upkeep, you may discard all the cards in your hand. And then if you do, you draw that many cards. So this is just kind of like a button of, hey, I'm going to put like, let's say we had 6 cards in our hand. I'm going to put +12 damage somewhere. So, sorry. Moving on, here's some creatures that care about when we draw cards. We have Chasm Skulker. It's 2 and a blue for a 1/1 creature squid horror. It says whenever you draw a card, you put a +1/+1 counter on Chasm Skulker. And then whenever Chasm Skulker dies, you create X 1/1 blue squid creature tokens with Island Walk, where X is the number of +1/+1 counters on Chasm Skulker. In case you forgot what Island Walk means, it means they cannot be blocked as long as your opponents have an island. Homunculus Horde, 3 and a blue for a 2/2 creature Homunculus. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a token that's a copy of this creature. And as you can tell, Homunculus Horde duplicates, and then those duplicate, and then those duplicate, and then it just gets out of control. Psychosis Crawler is 5 mana for a star artifact creature Phyrexian Horror. It's got power and toughness are each equal to the number of cards in your hand, and then whenever you draw a card, each opponent loses 1 life. And the final kind of card that cares about when we draw is the Locust God. It's 4 and a blue and a red for a 4/4 legendary creature god. It's got flying, and whenever you draw a card, you create a 1/1 blue and red insect creature token with flying and haste. Has an ability you can pay 2 blue and a red. Draw a card, then discard a card. And when the Locust God dies, return it to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. So Locust God, very hard to deal with. Love it here. Our final 2 creatures before we move on just are utility. It gums up the board with some extra creatures, and technically this other one is also an alternate win con. Talron, Sky Summoner, 2 and 2 blue for a 2/2 legendary creature Merfolk Wizard. Whenever you cast an instant sorcery spell, you create a 2/2 blue Drake creature token with flying. And Thassa's Oracle for 2 blue mana. It is a 1/3 creature Merfolk Wizard that says when it enters the battlefield, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is your devotion to blue. Put up to 1 of them on top of your library and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. And if X is greater than or equal to the number of cards in your library, you win the game. So, like I said, alternate win con there with Thassa. Very rare. We're not trying to do combos here, but if you did draw so many cards, because you are going to be drawing so many cards in this deck, Thassa's Oracle actually can trigger off. So, fun cards here. I love them. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the sorcery department of our deck. We've got some cards that care about the drawing and the discarding effect, so let's talk about them. Faithless Looting is 1 red mana for a sorcery. Draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards. It also has a flashback of 2 and a red, which means you can play it again from your graveyard for that cost. Fantastic card here, helps our deck run, and believe it or not, this is Riley's all-time favorite Magic card, so not shocked it's in this deck. Seize the Spoils, 2 and a red for a sorcery that says as an additional cost to cast this spell, you discard a card. You draw 2 cards and create a treasure token. And then Turbulent Dreams for 2 blue mana. It says as an additional cost to cast this, you discard X cards from your hand, and then you can return X target non-land permanents to their owner's hand. So a little bounce spell, and then good old-fashioned Windfall for 2 and a blue sorcery. Each player discards their hand, then draws cards equal to the greatest number of cards a player discarded this way. Keep in mind, if we did have Narset on the field and we were making everybody only draw 1 card, even if they get rid of their whole hand. It's a very mean combo there. These next 3 sorceries are really good to discard, and this last one we don't really die to mill. So, Artful Dodge, 1 blue mana sorcery. Target creature is unblockable this turn. Flashback for a blue. Seize the Day, 3 and a red for sorcery that says untap target creature. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase, followed by another main phase. And then there's a flashback of 2 and a red for that as well. And then Echo of Eons for 4 and 2 blue. It's a sorcery that just says each player shuffles their hand and graveyard into their library, then draws 7 cards. Flashback of 2 and a blue as well. So these are really fantastic targets to go ahead and pitch when we are going through, like I said, to discard because of those flashback costs. And Echo of Eons, if we are digging so quickly, we are not going to die to mill because we can just cast that if someone is trying to play mill. So it's a nice little extra safety button. We got to kill some stuff. So here's some other cards that are going into the deck. Blasphemous Act, 8 and a red sorcery. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature on the battlefield. It deals 13 damage to each creature. And Chandra's Ignition, 3 and 2 red. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to each other creature and each opponent. That card not only can be a board wipe in the end, but if we did pump something up so greatly with our commander, then we might just be able to just finish the game by killing our opponents. Because, so let's say our commander has bumped its power up itself to 15 after dealing damage. We play Chandra's Ignition. It does 15 damage to the board. It does 15 damage to each of our opponents. That could just end the game right there, and I'm okay with that. Our final 3 sorceries before we move on to the instance, we just have really good sorceries that we're just throwing into our colors here. So Jessica's Will, 2 and a red. Sorcery, if you choose one, if you control your commander as you cast a spell, you can choose both. Obviously, you guys know this one, right? It's add a red for each card in a target opponent's hand, or exile the top 3 cards of your library. You may play them this turn. Mizzix's Mastery, 3 and a red for a sorcery that says exile target card that's an instant or sorcery from your graveyard. For each card exiled this way, copy it. You may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. Exile Mizzix's Mastery. Of course, what makes this card powerful is its overload cost. For 5 and 3 red, instead of target, it is each. So yeah, it gets wild. And Mana Geyser for 3 and 2 red sorcery. Add a red to your mana pool for each tapped land your opponents control. So if you're actually on the board last, then this is going to be a really good card, because depending on how far in the late game we are, all your opponents can be tapped out. That is a lot of red mana. Moving on to the instance part, let's talk about some of the ones that discard for effect. So Big Score, 3 and a red for an instant. It says as an initial cost to cast a spell, you discard a card. You draw 2 cards, create 2 treasures. Frantic Search, 2 and a blue instant, draw 2 cards, and discard 2 cards. Untap up to 3 lands, so essentially a free spell. Prismari Command, 1 blue, red, instant, choose 2. You can have it deal 2 damage to any target. You could say target player draws 2 cards, then discards 2 cards. Pick yourself. And then target player creates a treasure token or destroy target artifact. So choose the 2 that fit you in the moment. And then Decaying Time Loop, 3 and a red for an instant. Discard all cards in your hand, then draw that many cards. And then it has a retrace effect, which means you may cast this card from your graveyard by discarding a land in addition to paying its other costs. So really, really good card here in this deck. Cycling also works really well in the deck, so these are very good for early game, late game, doesn't matter. Use it when you need it. Hieroglyphic Illumination is 3 and a blue. Draw 2 cards or cycle it away for 1 blue. Rescind is 1 and 2 blue for an instant. This is a return target permanent to its owner's hand or just cycle it away for 2 mana. We do need spot removal, so these next 3 cards care about that. Pongify, 1 blue, instant, destroy target creature, it can't be regenerated. And then its controller gets a 3/3 green ape. Very similarly, Rapid Hybridization, 1 blue, destroy target creature, it can't be regened. That creature's controller creates a 3/3 frog lizard creature. And then Reality Shift, 1 and a blue, exile target creature, its controller manifests the top card of their library. But we cannot forget, we are blue. And what is blue best at? Blue is best at saying no. So we are throwing in a good no package to go ahead and help our deck move even better. Circular Logic, 2 and a blue instant. Counter target spell unless its controller pays 1 for each card in your graveyard. And then it has a madness cost of 1 blue mana. And if in case you forget what that means, if you discard this card, discard it into exile. When you do, you cast it for its madness cost or put it into your graveyard. Counterspell, 2 blue, instant, counter target spell. Negate, 1 and a blue, instant, counter target non-creature spell. Rights of Refusal, 1 and a blue, instant, discard any number of cards from your hand, counter target spell, unless its controller pays 3 for each card discarded this way. This card is just so good in this deck because it does everything we want to do. Stubborn Denial, 1 blue mana, counter target non-creature spell, unless its controller pays 1, and it also has Ferocious, which means if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, counter that spell instead. So who cares about paying the 1? Our commander is 5 mana, so let's pay 1, counter target spell. Always. Last 2 instants here, both do something different. So let's go ahead and talk one at a time. Snap. This removes a problem. It helps save our creature, really. 1 and a blue, instant, return target creature to its owner's hand, untap up to 2 lands. So once again, it could be a free spell. Just play this, untap the same lands you just played it for. Easy. And Temur Battle Rage really helps with our commander. 1 and a red for an instant. Target creature gains double strike until end of turn. And then Ferocious, which means that creature also gains trample until end of turn if you control a creature with power 4 or greater. So this is a really fun combat trick that just says to your opponent, oh, by the way, because you didn't block our commander, you're now dead. Moving on to the artifacts, let's kick it off with some mana rocks, of course. Arcane Signet, Felwar Stone, Izzet Signet, really important into the deck. Very easy. They're all 2 mana. Arcane Signet taps for 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. Felwar taps for a mana of a color that a land an opponent could produce. And Izzet Signet, you can pay 1, tap it to add a blue and a red. Then you got Soul Ring and Talisman of Creativity as your final 2 rocks. Obviously, Soul Ring is 1 mana. You can tap to add 2 colorless, and Talisman is 2 mana. You can tap to add a colorless, or you can tap for a red or blue. But if you do, it does deal 1 damage to you. Told you the name of the game is to kill our opponents with commander damage. Let's add some equipment to really ensure that happens. Commander's Plate is 1 mana artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +3/+3 and has protection from each color that's not in your commander's color identity. You can equip your commander for 3 mana or just equip any creature for 5. Ember Cleave is 4 and 2 red for a legendary artifact equipment. Has flash, so surprise. It spell costs 1 less to cast for each attacking creature you control. And when it enters the battlefield, you just equip it to a target creature you control. And the equipped creature gets +1/+1, has double strike and trample. And then obviously if it's not attached to anything, you get equipped it for 3. Such a mean card. The Spear of Leonidas is 2 and a red for legendary artifact equipment. Whenever equipped creature attacks, you choose 1. You can have it gain double strike until the end of turn. You can make Phobos a legendary 3/2 red horse creature token, or discard 2 cards, then draw 2 cards. And it has an equip cost of 2. Final 2 equipments here. Swiftfoot Boots. We gotta give some protection too, right? 2 mana artifact equipment. Equipped creature has hexproof and haste. Equip cost of 1. And the Reaver Cleaver is 2 and a red legendary artifact equipment that says equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has trample. And whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, you create that many treasure tokens. Equip cost of 3. Our final artifacts that we are throwing into this deck are very good utility pieces. Key to the City is 2 mana for an artifact that you can tap, discard a card, and then up to 1 target creature can't be blocked this turn. It's just that line of text just says, hey, this is good for Captain Howler, really. And then whenever Key to the City becomes untapped, you make pay 2, and if you do, you draw a card. And then Monument to Endurance, actually from the same set. 3 mana artifact, and whenever you discard a card, you can choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn, draw a card, or create a treasure token, or each opponent loses 3 life. I think this card is so needed in this deck because it just triggers almost every turn. Moving on to the enchantment department, not a lot here, but still very good in this deck. We have Drake Haven, 2 and a blue enchantment that says whenever you cycle or discard a card, you may pay 1, and if you do, you create a 2/2 blue Drake creature token with flying. And also, of course, good old-fashioned Rhystic Study, 2 and a blue enchantment. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, you may draw a card, unless that player pays 1. Do you pay the 1? Probably not. Our final 2 enchantments are very good as well, and they are great. If it's the late game and we don't need them, we can go ahead and pitch them away with the cycle ability. But if we can cast them, they are very good as well. Shark Typhoon, 5 and a blue enchantment. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, which if you've seen already, this deck is mainly that. You create an XX blue shark creature token with flying, where X is that spell's mana value. Also, like I said, cycle it away for X, 1 and a blue. And then whenever you cycle Shark Typhoon, you create an XX blue shark creature token with flying. And then Reconnaissance Mission, 2 and 2 blue enchantment that says whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. And then if we don't need that effect, obviously cycle it away for just 2. And finally, let's go ahead and just run through this mana package real quick. Very good here. So these ones get our colors. Command Tower, tap it to add 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. Exotic Orchard, add 1 mana of a color that a land and opponent could produce. River Pyre Verge, you could tap it to add a red, or tap it to add a blue, but only activate if you control an island or mountain. Stormcarved Coast is a land that enters tapped unless you control 2 or more other lands. Tap for a blue or red. Sulphur Falls enters tapped unless you control an island or mountain. Tap for blue or red. And Training Center, our bond land, enters the battlefield tapped unless you have 2 or more opponents. I hope you do. You could tap it to add a blue or red as well. Steam Vents is our shock. Enters the battlefield tapped unless you pay 2 life. And then Shivan Reef taps for a colorless, or you could tap to add a blue or red. This land deals 1 damage to you. Cycle lands are also very good in this deck for obviously good reason. We want to discard stuff and draw new stuff. So Forgotten Cave and Lonely Sandbar both enter the battlefield tap, both tap for the respective color, both cycle for their respective color as well. So Forgotten Cave taps for a red and cycle away for a red. Lonely Sandbar, same thing, tap for a blue, cycle away for a blue. Remote Isle and Smoldering Crater, also the exact same lands. They enter the battlefield tapped. You can both tap them for the respective color. So Remote Isle is blue, Smoldering Crater is red, and they both can cycle away for just 2 mana. And then also the channel lands, they are really good in this deck as well. So Otawara, Soaring City, and Sokensan, Crucible of Defiance. Very, very important in this deck as well because they help discard themselves. Otawara, you can tap it to add a blue, but if you want, you can pay 3 and a blue, discard Otawara, Soaring City, and return target artifact, creature, enchantment, or planeswalker to its owner's hand. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each legendary creature you control. So probably not always going to cost 4, but it's also get rid of something on your opponent's board, protect your own thing with Otawara. Sokenzan, tap for a red, or channel it away for 3 and a red, discard it, and you can make 2 1/1 colorless spirit creature tokens. They gain haste till end of turn. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each legendary creature you control. So, like I said, 2 very good cards here. They're important. We got good utility in our lands as well. So Rogue's Passage is a land you can tap for a colorless or pay 4, tap it, and target creature can't be blocked this turn. Really getting in with that damage. Like I said, we want to kill our opponents with commander damage. And War Room, tap it, add a colorless, pay 3, tap it, pay life equal to the number of colors in your commander's color identity to draw a card. It's very good in pretty much any deck that's 2 or 1 color. And finally, last but certainly not least, we're adding in 11 basic islands and 9 basic mountains. But that is going to do it. That is Captain Howler Sea Scourge. That is the deck tech. And let me tell you, it is a fun one. Captain Howler, I was a little hesitant at first when this was first spoiled, but after seeing it in play, I mean, you might be seeing a gameplay very soon about this build, helmed by Riley in a gameplay. So be on the lookout for that. But yeah, Captain Howler, I really underestimated it. Just discarding multiple cards really pumps this up so fast and just smacks pretty hard. And yeah, commander damage is a thing to be worried about when it comes to Captain Howler. So fish don't howl. But let me tell you, you will once you get hit with this. But yeah, go ahead and comment down below. Let me know what you guys thought about this deck. Did you enjoy it? Maybe there was something you would have changed. Always interested to hear your guys' opinion. In the description, you will find a link to this entire deck list if you guys wanted to check it out, play test it on Moxfield. It's right there in the description. Not only that, you'll find links to all of our social media accounts. Follow us on those as well. You want to stay up to date with everything else that I've got going on. Hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, because like I said, we are continuously putting out videos, and you don't want to miss out on any of the content we're putting out. And on the screen right now, those are all of our Patreon subscribers. Thank you guys so much for your added support. It really does mean the world to us. Like I said at the beginning of the video, it was all up to our Gains Indestructible tier that made this deck tech possible. So a special shout out to them. So starting with Daryl Tripp, Demarion Turner, Doc Jerome, Jimmy Ward, Kevo, Larry Killian, Robert Myatt, Thrifty PSGR, Tim K, Wishwa Reich, and Ryder Cole. You guys are awesome. Appreciate every single one of you. And until the next video, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Peace.